Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. So, today, inshallah, I wanted to talk about a specific topic, and it is the first episode today, inshallah, of this series which I'm planning on doing, which is relating to Arab literature. So, basically, before we get into this topic, we need to understand what Arab literature is and what value it holds to us as Muslims. So, Arab literature is very, very crucial, and it's very important that we know its magnitude and its value that it has in our hearts and our eyes as Muslims. Because why? Because through understanding the power of Arab literature and its eloquence and its beauty, that's the only way that we can understand the true miracle and the true miraculous nature of the Quran al-Karim. So I just want to give a brief overview of Arab literature and what it's all about. So first of all, we have the Jahili Sha'r, the Mu'allaqat. For example, we have Az-Zir Salim, who is also known as Al-Muhalhil ibn Rabi'a. He wrote a poem about his brother Kulayb after he was assassinated by Jassas ibn Murrah. And then you have Al Harith ibn Abbad, whom when Zir Salim killed his son Jubayr or Bujair or however you want to say it, he wrote a poem about him, and it's very eloquent and it's very expressive. And then you have a poem by Umr al Qais al Kindi. It's called Qifa Nabki min Dhikra Habibi wa Manzili. It's very long and it's very known among the Arabs. It was and it is till this day taught in the classic books of literature as being from the most outstanding poems out there. And then you have Antarot ibn Shaddad al-Aibsi, who wrote about his loved one Abla. He wrote a long, long, long poem about her. And it is very romantic and it has a romantic touch to it. And it's very expressive, and the words there are subhanallah. Very, very expressive. And then you have الشنفر بن الأواس بن الحجر الأزدي. والشنفر بن الأواس بن الحجر الأزدي, basically he lived a very difficult life, and he wrote a poem about his life. It's called لامية العرب, where he starts it off by أقيموا بني أمي صدور مطلقكم. And then you have, for example, Zuhair ibn Abi Sulma. He wrote a poem. His poems were of a, or of a wisdom theme. Most of his poems, the theme that they contained was the theme of wisdom, and they were of not really philosophical nature, but like they were close to that sense. Yani they would talk about the contemplation of daily life and how daily life was and the deep meanings of daily life. He was more like a philosopher, even though he wasn't a philosopher, but his poems gave off that notion. And then you have Tarafat ibn Abd as well. So you have a lot of poems from the Jahili period. And then you have, literature from Sadr al-Islam. What Sadr al-Islam, basically, the scholars, they mentioned, it is the period between when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ received revelation up until Hassan ibn Ali radiallahu anhu decided to give up his position in leadership to Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan radiallahu anhu. So this period, this era, this epoch, the ulama, they call it Sadr al-Islam, okay? And there's a lot of literature in this area. And in this era, you have the Quran, obviously, it's top, There's nothing that can come close to it. And then you have the Sunnah, and then you have statements of the Sahaba, like, for example, khutbahs, the khutbah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, his speech when he became the Khalifa, and so on and so forth. You have poets who used to be poets of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu, like, for example, you have Hassan ibn Thabit, who used to write in his defense. Um, and then you have Al-Khansa, you have Ka'b ibn Malik, and you have Ka'b ibn Zuhair ibn Abi Sulma, who accepted Islam through an interesting way. And inshallah we'll find that out. And he wrote what is known as Al-Burdatul Ula, Al-Burda Al-Ula, the first Burda, which is called Banat Su'adu, and is a very beautiful and expressive poem, subhanallah. And then you move on to the Umayyad dynasty, the Umayyad time. You have, for example, Al-Mutanabbi. Al-Mutanabbi, he was known for writing very beautiful, expressive poems and emotional poems. For example, he has a very beautiful poem. It's called وَحَرَّ قَلْبَاهُ. You can look it up on YouTube, and you'll find a recording of it by Sheikh Mashari Nasir Al-Affasi, Hafidullah Ta'ala. It is very beautiful, such that it makes your heart want to melt when you listen to it. And then you have the poems from the Abbasid period, and so on and so on and so on. So anyway, back to our main point of focus is that the literature within the moment between the Prophet Muhammad SAW receiving revelation up until Al-Hassan radiallahu anhu giving up his position of office for uh, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan radiallahu anhu is very crucial. The literature of Sadr al-Islam, it is very crucial. And from this literature, we have an example of a very beautiful hadith. It's called Hadith Zara. And basically what this hadith is that it is a group of 11 women, and each one of them is talking about her husband. And we will see from this hadith, we will learn the power of speech. How with the same, uh, to describe the same idea, you can make it come off as being either very good or either very bad. And it just depends on what words you use. There's a famous saying in Arabic, it's called, with the same tongue, you can describe the same object as being either honey, nectar that bees come and revolve around, or you can describe it as being their vomit, huh? And flies come and crowd around it. So this is all from the power and beauty of the tongue and of expressiveness. So the hadith goes as follows. It's in Sahih al-Muslim, and the reason why the muhaddithun mentioned it to be Hadith Zara was because even though uh, she talks about her husband, so it should have been Hadith Abi Zara, right? But because of her description of her husband and her patience and her perseverance with him, it became known as Hadith Zara. So let's go into the hadith. So this hadith goes, Aisha radiallahu anha, she was sitting down with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she said to him, جلست إحدى عشرة امرأة, okay? 11 women sat in another narration, fil jahiliyyah, before Islam. So 11 women before Islam came together, sat, and decided to do something. What did they decide to do? فتعاهدنا وتعاقدنا. They came together in agreement and they decided على ألا يكتمن من أخبار أزواجهن شيئا, that they would not keep any of the matters of their husbands as secrets, that they will divulge and mention any information that has to do with their husband, and they would give it out. So let's go to the first one. What did she say? قالت الأولى زوجي لحم جمل غث على رأس جبل وعر لا سهل فيرتقى ولا سمين فينتقى. Or in another narration, وَلَا سَمِينٌ فَيُنْتَقَلْ. So basically what she said is, my husband is, you know, the meat of a camel, the meat, very hard meat of a camel on top of a very, very high mountaintop. Okay, it takes a long time for you to get to that mountaintop. It's not easy to climb that mountain, and once you do reach that mountain, there's barely any meat for you to eat in the first place. So look how subhanallah, this woman violated her husband's honor, her husband's dignity in front of all her 10 friends by calling him that. She was basically implying that he is so hard to get along with. Yani there's absolutely no way to reach him. And once you can finally reach him, there's nothing for him to give in the first place. So all your efforts will go fruitless and there's no point and it's not worth it. So subhanallah, this shows you the beauty and the eloquence of speech, as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "Inna min al-bayani la sihra." Indeed, from speech there is a type of magic. Um, so inshallah, that concludes today's episode. Jazakumullah khair everyone for listening. I'll see you in the next episode. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.